What I'm about to tell you may completely change the way you take your blood pressure medicine tonight. Because there is one timing mistake with amlodipine, losartan, and lisinopril that looks harmless, sounds logical, and is repeated online every single day. But in the wrong person, it can trigger dizziness, confusion, a dangerous drop in blood pressure, and a fall that changes everything. And the terrifying part is that many seniors make this mistake because they're trying to do the responsible thing. They're trying to take their medicine exactly when they were told was best. But best for one body can be absolutely wrong for another. By the end of this video, you'll know the most dangerous time to take these medicines, who is most at risk, and how to protect yourself starting today. I'm Dr. Aliza Wright, and after more than 2 decades in cardiology, I need to tell you something most people never hear clearly enough. Please subscribe to this channel today because the next few minutes could protect your heart, your brain, and your independence. Now here's the problem. Millions of people have been told some version of this sentence. Take your blood pressure pill at night because that's better for your heart. And for some people, that timing may be perfectly fine. But for others, especially older adults, people who wake up to use the bathroom, people who already get lightheaded, people on more than one blood pressure medicine, or people who are starting a new dose, bedtime can become the most dangerous moment of the entire day. Let me tell you about Elaine, because her story explains why this subject is so much more serious than people realize. Elaine was 73, sharp, independent, still driving, still gardening, still caring for her husband. Her doctor added lisinopril for rising blood pressure. Later that week, her neighbor told her, "Take it at bedtime. That's when blood pressure pills work best." It sounded smart. It sounded modern. So Elaine swallowed her first tablet at 10 p.m., read for a while, fell asleep, and at 1:30 in the morning, she got up to use the bathroom. Halfway down the hall, her vision narrowed, her knees buckled, and she hit the wall hard enough to leave a shoulder bruise the size of a grapefruit. She was lucky. It could have been her hip. It could have been her head. It could have been much worse. And here's why Elaine's story matters so much. The medicine itself was not evil. The prescription was not reckless. The danger came from a timing decision that ignored how her real life actually worked. She already woke up at night to urinate. She already moved a little slowly when standing. She had mild dehydration from not drinking enough during the day. She was also taking another medication that could make her feel tired. Put all of that together, and bedtime was not just a neutral option. It was the most vulnerable time in her 24-hour cycle. That is the secret people miss. When we talk about the best time for blood pressure medicine, we are not just talking about a clock. We are talking about your body, your routine, your balance, your hydration, your sleep, and your risk of getting hurt. Before I reveal the single most dangerous time, you need to understand what these 3 medications actually do, because that changes everything. Amlodipine relaxes blood vessels through calcium channel blocking. Losartan blocks the action of angiotensin II, a chemical that tightens blood vessels. Lisinopril reduces the body's production of that same tightening signal by blocking an enzyme upstream. 3 different paths, but one shared result. Blood vessels relax, pressure falls, and the heart pumps against less resistance. That can be life-saving. It lowers the risk of stroke, heart attack, kidney damage, and heart failure. But if blood pressure falls more than your body can smoothly handle at the wrong moment, what you feel is not heart protection. What you feel is weakness, wobbliness, dim vision, nausea, fatigue, and sometimes collapse. And this is where people get trapped by oversimplified advice. They hear one rule and assume it applies to every person, every age, every dose, and every situation. Morning is best. Night is best. Split them up. Take them all together. That kind of blanket advice sounds clean and comforting, but medicine is rarely that simple. Blood pressure follows a daily rhythm. It often rises in the morning, changes with activity, drops with rest, and reacts to dehydration, meals, stress, heat, alcohol, illness, and sleep. These drugs are also long-acting in many patients, which means their effect is not confined to one magical hour. So the question is not merely, what time is ideal in theory? The question is, at what time are you safest, most consistent, and least likely to experience a dangerous drop or missed doses? Now let me tell you about Warren, because his case reveals one of the biggest hidden timing dangers of all. Warren was 76 and had just started Losartan. He felt fine during the day, so he assumed the medicine wasn't doing much. Then his daughter read an article online claiming nighttime dosing was better, and Warren moved his pill to 9:30 p.m. without telling anyone. 3 nights later, he got out of bed after a deep sleep to answer the phone, stood up quickly, and felt the room tilt. He caught the dresser just in time. The next morning, he told his family, "That medicine doesn't agree with me at night." And he was partly right, but not for the reason he thought. The issue wasn't that Losartan becomes dangerous after sunset. The issue was that his pressure drop lined up with his most unstable moment, standing up abruptly in darkness. That brings us to one of the most underestimated concepts in all of blood pressure treatment: first dose and early dose vulnerability. When someone begins Lisinopril or Losartan, or when the dose is increased, the body has not fully adapted yet. During that adjustment period, some people feel dizzy, lightheaded, or unusually tired, especially when standing quickly. For certain patients, taking the dose in the evening may actually help because they sleep through that adjustment. But for others, especially people who wake at night, have poor balance, or live alone, that same evening timing can turn a manageable side effect into a fall risk. This is why the same instruction can protect one patient and endanger another. Timing is not a slogan. Timing is a clinical decision tied to behavior and risk. If we ignore that, we stop practicing medicine and start practicing superstition. Let's talk specifically about lisinopril first, because it causes more timing confusion than almost any other blood pressure medicine. Lisinopril is often taken once daily, and many people do perfectly well taking it in the morning or the evening as long as they take it consistently. But early on, some people notice dizziness, particularly if they stand up fast, are dehydrated, or are also taking diuretics. That is where bad advice starts spreading. Someone says, "Take it before bed so you won't feel dizzy." Sometimes that works beautifully. Sometimes it prevents daytime lightheadedness. But if you are the kind of person who wakes up twice a night to use the bathroom, if you shuffle in dim light, if you already feel weak when rising, or if you've had near fainting spells before, bedtime may not be protective at all. It may position the medicine's pressure-lowering effect directly inside your riskiest mobility window. Now, Losartan. Many people assume Losartan is so gentle that timing barely matters. And for a lot of patients, it's true that the most important thing is simply taking it reliably at the same time every day, because consistency is what gives you stable 24-hour control. But gentle does not mean risk-free. Losartan can still make some people dizzy when they start, when the dose changes, when they are sick, when they miss meals, or when they are dehydrated. I have seen patients move Losartan from morning to bedtime because they heard night was ideal, only to realize they feel perfectly fine sitting in bed, but terrible at 3 a.m. walking to the bathroom. In other words, they don't discover the problem when they swallow the pill. They discover it when gravity hits, blood pools in the legs, and the brain momentarily gets less pressure than it expects. And then there is amlodipine, the medication people often think is easiest of all. Because it is long-acting, many assume the clock barely matters. And again, for many patients, the exact hour is less important than routine. But that doesn't mean timing is meaningless. Amlodipine can cause dizziness, fatigue, flushing, or a heavy, weak feeling in some people, especially after dose increases. It can also contribute to swelling in the ankles and feet, which may become more noticeable depending on how long someone is upright during the day. Some patients prefer evening dosing because it reduces awareness of side effects while they rest. Others hate evening dosing because they wake groggy or unsteady. The point is this: even a long-acting drug can create a real-world danger if its peak effect or most noticeable side effects overlap with the exact hours when you're most fragile, distracted, dehydrated, or physically unstable. Now, here is something almost nobody explains clearly enough to seniors. The danger is often not the pill alone. The danger is the pileup. The pill plus dehydration. The pill plus a dark hallway. The pill plus neuropathy in the feet. The pill plus a sleeping aid. The pill plus alcohol with dinner. The pill plus getting up too fast. The pill plus poor vision. The pill plus low sodium. The pill plus a hot shower. The pill plus a stomach bug. The pill plus a skipped meal. That is how people end up saying, "This medicine came out of nowhere," when in reality, the medicine walked into a room full of other risk factors, and all of them started pushing in the same direction. Timing matters because it determines when that pileup is most likely to happen. And in older adults, that pileup very often happens at night. Let me show you exactly why nighttime can become a trap. You take your pill at bedtime. You fall asleep. A few hours later, you wake up to urinate. You stand from a warm bed into a cooler room. Your blood vessels need to tighten quickly to keep pressure up to your brain. But if you are older, dehydrated, or pressure lowered by medication, that response may be slower. So your pressure falls. Vision dims, the ears ring, the legs feel empty, you reach for furniture. That whole sequence can happen in seconds. And because it happens in the dark, when the body is still half asleep, people underestimate how dangerous it is until after the stumble. This is why simply telling every person to take amlodipine, losartan, or lisinopril at bedtime is reckless. It ignores the most dangerous event in many seniors' day, the nighttime stand. But I need to be fair, because the opposite myth is dangerous too. Some people hear this and decide bedtime must always be wrong. That is not true. For some patients, morning can be the worst option. Imagine a person who starts lisinopril at breakfast, then runs errands, showers, bends down in the garden, drives across town, stands in line at the pharmacy, and gets lightheaded every time they rise from a chair. That person may do better with evening dosing because it moves the most noticeable pressure drop away from active hours. So if you're waiting for me to say 9 p.m. is always dangerous or 7 a.m. is always safest, I'm not going to mislead you. Medicine doesn't work that way. The truth is more useful than that. The most dangerous time is not the same for every body. But there is one timing mistake that becomes dangerous more often than people realize, especially in seniors. Before I reveal it directly, you need to hear about the bedtime myth, because it has confused millions of patients. For years, people heard that taking blood pressure medicine at night might be superior because blood pressure often rises before waking, and because nighttime pressure patterns may matter for cardiovascular risk. That idea spread fast, and it became internet certainty long before it became settled clinical truth. Suddenly, patients were moving pills to bedtime without checking symptoms, fall risk, or medication type. Some even felt guilty if they took them in the morning, as if they were taking their medicine wrong. But later, much larger, more careful research showed something extremely important. Overall outcomes were not meaningfully better just because patients took their usual blood pressure medications at night instead of in the morning. That changed the conversation, and it should change yours too. Large modern studies found no clear universal advantage for bedtime over morning for major cardiovascular outcomes in typical patients taking blood pressure medicines once daily. In plain English, that means this: there is no magical nighttime protection that automatically makes bedtime the best choice for everyone, and there is no strong evidence that every person on amlodipine, losartan, or lisinopril should be moved to the evening. Even more important, later data in frail older adults also failed to show that bedtime dosing delivered some sweeping clinical benefit over morning dosing. That matters because frail older adults are exactly the people who can be harmed by oversimplified timing advice. So when someone tells you night is always best, remember this. The best studies do not support that kind of blanket statement. What they support is something more practical and more personal. Take the medicine when you are least likely to forget and most likely to stay safe. That single principle, least likely